kind of almost relieved that the house prices are too high, so that I'm not tempted to get in, and have a go and hope that it's a worthwhile punt. Sorry, Simon, go on.
No, I was simply going to say, I just remember my parents telling me that when they bought their first house, you expected to make a loss. You bought it as somewhere to live in. Now, there's an extraordinary idea. You didn't buy it as an investment. And I was very lucky. I mean, I was about, I guess, Jan's age when I bought my first place, and I pushed the boat out a little, but nothing like people have to do now. Well, you're going to have a whole generation of young professionals, apart from anything else, who simply are not going to be able to afford to live in their own homes. Now, in a rational environment, because London is so expensive, people move elsewhere, but we're not as mobile, I think, as the Americans tend to be.
Okay, now next question is, we'll start with Max on this, because it goes along with all this, because house prices, of course, are very cheap in Detroit, where you could buy a home for like 50 bucks, 50 quid, which is cheaper than a dinner out in Soho. Now, however, the Detroit bankruptcy got the go-ahead this week to go bankrupt as a huge municipal bankruptcy, and it looks like they're going to target the pensions of the city employees, where they're on an average of $19,000 before you start commenting on the YouTube below and say, oh, they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not California, this is Detroit, and they're on an average of $19,000 pension. Now, that's going to be slashed. I saw one former police officer saying that it was going to get cut down to like $6,000 from $19,000. So the question is from John Rutkowski on Facebook. Do you think this is going to be something that is going to spread across the entire U.S.?
Well, the bank's predatory behavior is going after either pots of money or predictable, reliable income streams. So in the housing market, they have what they believe to be predictable, reliable income streams. So they create these massive bubbles and busts as a way to take possession of people's homes. You see that in the United States now. The homes are owned by hedge funds and private equity groups who bought tens of thousands of homes after the last bust because they get that predictable income stream. In the case of pots of money, Detroit had a pension system with a pot of money in it. So in order to grab that money, you allowed for the municipality to go bankrupt. It's very similar to what we see going on with Carl Icahn and Apple Computer. Apple Computer has a $100 billion plus pot of money, and Carl Icahn is a corporate raider who decided he was going to he's raiding Apple to get that pot of money. We used to call it on Wall Street greenmail, which was a version of blackmail, but now in the 21st century, his activities are referred to as being an activist investor. So they've rebranded themselves in this warm, fuzzy way as being an activist investor, but they're actually just blackmailers and predatory agents, operators in the system. So whenever you see pots of money or predictable income, and in the UK you have predictable income in the transportation system. So what happened? It went privatized and it was open to predatory monopolists.
They've lost control and they overspent, and I think it's quite scary when you look at the numbers and the reasons why Detroit went the way it did, particularly in terms of, their property taxes were so high and they were driving, they were it wasn't attractive anymore to be there. It was too expensive for businesses to remain there, and wages and benefits and all the obligations on the local government. And I think that's something that we have to bear in mind for not only in the UK economy but other US states. But in terms of the trade agreements, literally all I've done on that is kind of what you just mentioned, so I wouldn't be comfortable talking about that at the moment.
Okay, Simon, any thoughts on the
No, I'm way behind the curve on this one. I obviously need to bone up.
How about the pensions? You know a lot about pensions, though, right?
Well, I thought the problem with pensions
here, I know that they're saying that we're going to have to start retiring at 70 plus here in the UK.
Yeah, well, to some extent that is sensible. If you have a steadily aging population, then a pension system that was established many years ago when people stood very little chance of actually living even to pensionable age, well, it does make sense to try and make some sort of attempt to match your obligations with what's going to happen. I do notice now that with the pensionable age going up to 70, as somebody pointed out to me only earlier today, that means that in Glasgow many people won't actually get to their pensionable age because the age men are expected to live to in Glasgow is less than 70. But it's an unaffordable scheme.
Yeah.
It's a Ponzi scheme. It always has been in the UK. It's using the next generation to pay for the pensions of the previous generation. How long can that survive? And we have a sort of pensions apartheid of sorts in the UK, because we have about a sixth of the workers are in sort of state sponsored pensions, including, of course, our own MPs, and they have, by and large, a much more generous and guaranteed pension scheme. But if you're in the private sector, every single government in the UK has tinkered with pensions. They've stolen a bit here, stolen a bit there. And it's not only that pensions are less valuable than they used to be. We used to have a pension system that was the envy of the world in the private sector.